Welcome back to the Hope to Hope Conference. We are excited to be here. I'm Kim White with the My Sexy Business team.
And I'm Coni Meyers with the Crystalline Moment Success Movement and Publishing.
We are thrilled about our next guest. This has been a crazy, awesome day. This is the fourth day of the conference, and I am forever changed, and I hope everyone watching
I certainly am, forever.
So our next guest is one sweetheart of a powerhouse, though. Don't underestimate her. She is precious, but she is some kind of get-it-done girl. So I want to not hesitate to introduce or wait any longer to introduce Miss Donna Branch. Welcome to the Hope to Hope Conference.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here and appreciate you inviting me. And was a little bit nervous earlier, ladies, but Christy, our friend, reassured me that you'll make it easy on me. So thank you for doing that. It's already. And your earlier guest, you talked about just showing up when she was first starting to speak and going through Toastmasters. So I'm just showing up, and I appreciate the invitation.
I love it. And I love that you're a show-up girl, because I know you well enough to know you are a show-up girl. You are doing some amazing things. You're trying to change the world. And that's my favorite flavor of people, just so you know. I'm excited about what you're doing. But before we tell everybody, like, kind of the now, can we go back and talk about what the conference, is about? Can you tell us something in your life that was an issue, or you were stuck, or something that you can encourage someone that they can get past where they are, because you've been there, done that, and now you're in another place?
So in 2012, through part of 2013, our HR department, which was about 9 of us at the time, went through some major transition. We had a new HR director. And so we were going through the transition of getting to know a new director at the same time that we were being audited by the federal government. We were going through a federal review, which happens every 4 years in our organization. We're a nonprofit. And what we didn't stop to think was the pressure that she was under. So all we knew was that there were 9 of us that were feeling extremely vulnerable. And she was feeling so much pressure on herself that it was trickling down. So we had 9 people in a department that were feeling extremely vulnerable in different ways. And I looked at Wikipedia last night, and vulnerability means the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of threat or harm, and it can be either physically or emotionally, and we were all dealing with the emotionally part of it. So like I said, we all dealt with it in different ways. There were a couple of us that were, not myself, but there were a couple of people on our team that were the squeaky wheel, and they were the ones that were extremely confident in their abilities. They were the ones that spoke up when they were dissatisfied, and not only to everybody in our department through kind of a negative way, but also to our new HR director. So they had her ear. They were definitely the squeaky wheels, and they were friends and still are. I responded to it very differently. I retreated, and I went back to my workaholic ways. So I'm a recovering workaholic. I started working harder and working more to protect myself and protect my team, and was at the office until 8 or 9 o'clock sometimes. It was crazy. Eventually, our squeaky wheels, my dear friends, both got promoted to manager positions. We had 3 managers in a department of 9, and one of them was an HR director. So we had half managers and half staff. It was kind of crazy, but it was our way of trying to fix the problem, because none of us were getting to the core of what the problem really was. And then there were a few of us, support staff, that really didn't know what was going on, but they were feeling the stress and the pressure. And I'm a protector and a defender, and 2 of them just happened to be on my team. So I took it upon, and one was a very close friend, and she was in jeopardy of losing her job. So I took it upon myself to become their defenders. And I did everything that I could to protect them from any further negativity from a couple of people that were saying they weren't doing their jobs and they weren't meeting their job expectations because their jobs were at risk. So what little I didn't know at the time, I found out about 6 months later that my protection of them and what I thought that I was doing to help keep their jobs was being perceived as micromanaging. I've never been accused of being a micromanager. And because that I wasn't vulnerable with them. I didn't explain to them what was going on. I just came to their rescue and came to their side and made sure that they were doing everything exactly right so they wouldn't have any more negativity spoken about them. Little did I know, because I wasn't vulnerable with them, that they thought I was micromanaging.
Wow.
And so eventually, 4 of the people in our department ended up leaving. And I decided that I wanted to stay. I had interviewed, I had looked for other jobs, I almost got another job, but I decided that I wanted to stay. And to be able to stay, I knew I was going to have to make myself vulnerable. And that wasn't easy for any of us, and especially me.
I love your definition of vulnerability.
Go ahead, I couldn't hear you.
I love your definition of vulnerability. Like, that is such a great, you do open yourself up and to the, you expose yourself when you're vulnerable. And it's
Yes.
so important to understand the cost of that first and foremost, but also the depth of how much you can help someone else if you are making that sacrifice.
Yes. And in my mind, because when you're in a crisis, sometimes your judgment isn't what it used to be, and you're just in crisis mode, and so you're just reacting. You're in a very reactive state. So it didn't come to mind that I needed to explain to them what was going on, because I thought I was protecting them. So eventually I decided that it was time, and I sent our HR director a text and let her know that I really needed to talk. Well, she called me back immediately and couldn't get hold of me. Had some health issues with my mom going on, needed to be at the hospital, and she just blew my phone off. And so I quickly realized that what I had to say did matter. Didn't gain a trust with her, hadn't gained a trust with her yet. And so my assumption was I wouldn't care because I wasn't that squeaky wheel. I wasn't her right hand at the time. I wasn't the one that she confided in. But when we did finally connect, I realized that she was dealing with a lot too, and that she hadn't really confided in me what was going on. And she took the time to do that. And there was a difference almost immediately, but not quite. I had a real my faith. I knew that I didn't have the strength because we were all in this crisis on my own to come to a point that I could trust her and come to a point that I could be sincere, because there were a lot of decisions and a lot of processes and a lot of behaviors that she had that I just didn't agree with because I didn't know what was going on. And so I knew I had to go in, and it was critical that I went in with the sincerity, and because she would see right through me if I didn't go in with the sincerity. So it took really letting God come alongside me to give me a perspective of what she was going through. And so I could come alongside her and give her the respect that her position had earned. And so I could start thinking the way that she thought and start supporting the decisions that she made even when I disagreed with them. And ladies, it was immediate. The change in how she responded to me, she no longer micromanaged, like in a day. I mean, that day, immediately, I saw a change.
Wow.
And it was incredible. And let's see, she's gone now. We're still friends. speak very openly about the challenges that we had in our relationship, and I use her example when I'm mentoring and coaching employees. I use our example of how, although I disagreed with her, I had to come to a place because I decided I wanted to stay in that organization. I wanted to work there, and she was my boss. So I had to come to a place in a very sincere way that I could respect her authority. Didn't mean I was always going to agree with her. And once I did that, it was amazing how quickly our relationship changed of a relationship of mutual trust.
Wow. Wow.
That is an amazing. It's amazing how much our perception drives our behavior. You know, when we feel like someone is against us, we wall up, or if we're making decisions based on things we understand and someone is perceiving them differently, it's very difficult, you know,
It
in those
is.
situations to know what to do, because the chance that you took, and this is what I want to acknowledge, is the chance that you took, and she could have, you know, chewed you up and spit you out.
Thank you. Yes, and that's why I texted, because I was a little bit fearful because we didn't have that relationship established yet. And texting sometimes can be safe, and it gave her time to think about what I might be wanting to talk about, and her responding to me so quickly and calling me repeatedly, because it took us several hours before we connected because I had a lot going on that day, and her concern about what I wanted to talk about made me realize that she actually did value me because I was not feeling valued. And just that alone made a huge difference. And she said, take the rest of the day off. And that was huge. And I told her one day, I said, you know, because she's very, very busy. I said, you know, you can give me one encouraging word during the day, and I can be in that funk of the late afternoon. And I don't know if you guys ever have this funk at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon where you need to get your
Oh
energy.
yeah.
So I
Yes.
remember one day I had this funk, and we were all super drained. I didn't have any energy. I was just dragging my behind back to my office, not wanting to be there. And for whatever reason, this is after I text her, she stopped me in the hallway and actually gave me some positive reinforcement. And I've told her immediately, ladies, and I'm sure you've had this experience, immediately I had a new sense of energy and motivation to get back in my office and start working hard for her. It's just so simple. I was working anyway, but it was draining my energy.
I mean, something as simple as a little bit of positive, a few positive words, or just some little thing can truly change everything. The energy's all around you, all around her, all around the other people that are around you. That little tiny step.
Absolutely. And something that I learned during this experience, especially, is timing is everything. And one of the reasons that I decided I needed to text her and ask her to talk is because there had been once or twice previously that I had tried to reach out, or I had tried to hint to her how I was feeling, and she was so preoccupied with whatever she was doing in the next meeting that she wasn't catching on to the hints because she was in crisis mode too. And I'm like, what do I have to do? Why is she not catching on to my hints? And sorry about that. And my passive aggressive approach just wasn't working anymore. So I realized timing is everything, and I was going to let the timing be hers. And the timing of the text must have been perfect because she responded immediately and wanted to talk that day. And the other thing is, if you're feeling vulnerable, and you're feeling stressed, just because they're in a position of authority over you, they're probably having those same feelings. And number 3, most people, I have learned, and this was a real hard lesson for me because I was not brought up to be vulnerable. I was brought up to be tough, and I could handle anything. I'm a country girl. But most people respond to sincere vulnerability really well because they want to know that somebody else is feeling probably the same thing that you're feeling. And one thing I learned as well that goes hand in hand with that is you don't want to confuse vulnerability with negativity. It's very different.
Absolutely.
Negativity drains people's energy. And if you allow it to, it can take your joy. Vulnerability is going to come at the person with a sincere desire and in love and with respect. And it's also going to, the intent is going to be to have a solution, not to just bend somebody's ear and talk about how somebody's really irritating you or making your life difficult. So we had to learn in my department, and some of them learned, some of them didn't. 4 out of 9 of the people left. It was the highest rate of turnover that I have had in my HR career, and I've been doing this for 25 years. Typically, HR tends to be the fixers. We're the coaches. We're the ones that are helping mediate these conversations and helping other departments. So it was something that I hadn't experienced at that level. It was extreme, and I made it, and I've been there 11 years now. And I'm so grateful that I didn't rely on my own strength, and I didn't rely on being tough because I could handle anything. I can work 60 hours. You know what? I don't want to work 60 hours a week. I don't want to get my accolades and my self-worth from those accolades, from overwork. I've got more important kingdom work to do. And, you know, that experience. What'd you say?
Amen.
But that experience launched the work that I want to do in the community, and it sparked my desire to help more people that are going through similar things. And I have that opportunity every single day in the workday because I'm an HR manager, and that's what I do. But I want to take it into the community very intentionally, and I want us to share our resources and the things that we have as women that connect with each other and share each other's talents and gifts and encourage each other like you guys are doing with all of these incredible speakers that you've lined up. That's encouraging us to use our talent. That's encouraging us to share our visions and resources. And we just have to do that in a very much more intentional way. So we know where to go when we're facing these crises. In 2012, I didn't know where to go. It kind of surprised me that I got in the middle of that, and I finally had to tell some very dear friends that I can't be in the middle of it anymore. Because even if I am your only person that you are confiding in because you're unhappy, it's taken my energy, and I risk losing my joy. Unless you're coming to me with a solution and you want me to help come up with that solution, then I can't hear that anymore because it continues to cause distrust between me and my leader. And I cannot repair that relationship if I'm allowing myself to hear that. And so during that time, I actually lost a couple. I didn't really lose their friendships, but they quit coming to me. But eventually they both came back to me. They left the organization, and, you know, we remained close. And one of them, a dear friend who has passed away since, she said, you know, Donna, you persevered, and you ended up getting the prize. And I knew she was going through a really hard time with new jobs, and she loved it there too. She just could not get herself into a place that she could submit and humble herself to the authority because she disagreed with it. And that's hard sometimes for a strong, independent career woman to submit.
That can be very difficult. sometimes our strong will keeps the blinders on more than they should be.
Being strong-willed is actually a positive trait with a negative side. Like being strong-willed
is very good.
It's what helps us endure something like that. And being strong-willed, we are tenacious and we are, able to accomplish things. But it also is exactly what you're saying. The other side of that coin is sometimes we're too stubborn to listen, or too stubborn to be flexible, or to
even see, to even see when it's obvious.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, so you are an amazing example of someone who doesn't necessarily agree with the authority over them, but has learned to honor that position and honor that place of authority, and yet accomplish great things because you didn't leave and you didn't abandon ship, and you went and told her how you were feeling, and the things that were going on with you, and then you then understood how she was feeling. You all are friends now. I mean, all of those things are super, to me, that's all super sexy. It's amazing when we come out the other side of a trial or an issue, and we come away with relationships.
Yeah.
I think that was your pride.
Yes.
Like being able to have relationships with people that you don't agree with at first, or but to be able to persevere and have a good relationship with them. That gives me hope for relationships I have in my life that that are not going the way I want them to.
Right. Well, I think anytime you have a relationship that is not exactly going according to plan, it's if you can step back and say, okay, is it because of authority? Is it because of negativity? Is it because of stubbornness? There's usually it really boils down to not being vulnerable, not allowing ourselves to be who we really are and to say what we really need to say.
Well, and I would like for you, if you will, to help us understand give us tips or a how-to maybe on if someone's coming to us and they are talking negatively and they are not looking for a solution, they are looking for just a complaining place. How can we redirect that to either them stopping, like you said, stopping telling you, or redirect it to let's find a solution? How can you do that like gracefully?
That's a really good question, and that's part of the training that we'll be doing for new employees. I have a friend that's going to be doing a 3-day boot camp for us. He's going to help create it, and the goal is to prepare people for the workplace to deal with those kind of things. I work for an organization that has over 600 employees, and our biggest problem and the main reason that I have to let somebody go that used to do a really good job for us is because they're dealing with the emotions of the workplace, and they can't get past the negativity, and they're in the middle of the gossip, and sometimes that fuels their behavior. If they're already behaving badly, the negativity kind of enforces that you're right. And I had that happen myself. I had a friend that was telling me, you can't trust her. You need to be careful about her motives. Don't share with her. Don't share too much with her. And it started causing me to respond to her in meetings differently than I normally would. And she noticed, and she called me on it. And at first I got kind of angry, but I didn't have anybody to tell me how to deal with that. And so it was kind of funny. I had to start with my boss, because my boss had got to a point that she was feeling so vulnerable that I was the last one she could confide in. So I had this conversation with her about feeling vulnerable, and she starts trusting me, and with that trust, she starts wanting to confide in me about things that were bothering her with my friends who were on the team. And the first conversation, I just kind of let it go. And the second conversation, I said, I really want to help with this relationship. I said, but I want you to know that I'm going to have to talk to Addie. So I'm going to let her know about our conversation, because Addie was a dear friend of mine. She's the one that passed away about 1.5 years ago. And so after our conversation, I called Addie because I could not betray somebody by being involved in the gossip. And I said, I just want you to know I had a conversation with our boss. I won't mention her name. And she really wants to make this right. And I can help mediate if you want. I don't have to be involved, but I just wanted you to know that we had that conversation, because I don't want anybody to think I'm betraying them by talking about them behind their back. So what I suggest to employees that are in the middle of that, and this is what I did. I had another employee that was coming to me, and I said, so have you spoken to her about it? Well, not yet. Well, I would suggest that you speak to her about it and that you let her know how you're feeling. And so she came back to me another time, and I said, have you spoken to her about it? She eventually told me that she had spoken to her about it, and she quit coming back to me because she didn't like me. She didn't like that I wasn't encouraging the conversation. And I find that if you just ask questions, it's less, it doesn't make them feel badly about what they're doing or what they're saying. You're not judging them. You're just asking a question. Did you ask? Or did you talk to her about it? And it was funny because she eventually told me that she did talk to her about it. And when she left our organization, our HR director, I asked her, I said, how did the conversation go when she approached you? And she said she never talked to me about it. So I think that oftentimes we think we're being clear with the person.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're trying to be vulnerable, but instead we're just giving hints. And you may think that you expressed yourself well enough, or that they should read between the lines, but you have to be so direct, and being direct is hard. And so I had a young lady that just started with us, and I kind of wanted to test. I recommended her for a job and put her through our photo pool, and I kind of wanted to test if I coached her before she started with us, what might happen. And she's 19, and she's precious. But I knew her well enough to know that because she has such a big, big personality, that there was probably a good possibility that she might be one of those people that people confided in when they wanted to talk about their managers or coworkers. And so I just prepared her. I said, we work in a really, really large organization. This is a very... this is a job that has a lot of rewards. But with a job that has a lot of rewards, there's also a lot of challenges. And there can be a lot of stress. So when that stress happens, people have the tendency to start talking about other people or being negative. And you're a light. You're a bright light. And I just want to encourage you to be careful that if you get caught in the middle of that, just make sure your light keeps shining, and that you pull yourself out of the negative talk. And she goes, oh gosh, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I talked to her a few weeks later, and she's like, oh my gosh, everything's so perfect. It's not going to happen. And about 4 weeks later, she called me at home, and she said, I just had to let you know that some things that I said were misinterpreted. And she said, I got in the middle of these conversations, and your name was even brought into it. But because I had prepared her, she pulled herself out of it. And she called me, and she asked for advice on how to move forward. So I think it's all in just preparing yourself.
That is awesome, though. See, that's the kind of world changer you are. You start with one person, and it ripples out, because what you taught her to do differently will cause her to do things differently from now on for the rest of her life.
And you know
Well,
something,
so,
go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
So, something else that I wanted to mention about that, and that I learned that we really have to think about as we move forward and we help other people dealing with similar situations, is that we all deal with the pain and vulnerability in our own way, and oftentimes it's through an addiction. My addiction was work. I got my self-worth from work and getting accolades from people above me. Some people, and this was me a little bit too, some people rely on stress shopping. What do they call it? Shopping therapy or something like that, I think.
Yes.
Some people rely on alcohol. I've even been there. You know, by the grace of God, I don't have that addiction, and take it or leave it. But there were times that an extra glass of wine was sounding really good. And some people, most of us, when a crisis hits, we don't expect it, because it goes gradually. It goes from, oh, this is hard. Oh, well, this is a little bit harder. Oh, well, this is an extra challenge today. But again, we're so strong, and we're so used to being perceived as strong and independent, that we go until it hits crisis. And by the time it hits crisis, we respond badly, because we don't deal with crisis very often, because we do handle a lot. And so when we get in that crisis mode, then we start feeling powerless. And human nature is to find something to substitute and take over. So instead of dealing with how I was feeling, instead of dealing with this is really hard, and it's hard for me to come to work every day to a job that I used to love, an organization that I love, I substituted it by working harder, trying to come up with solutions, because I'm a fixer, and working too much and shopping too much. My husband wasn't liking the credit card bills, and I had to figure out a healthier way, and it was being vulnerable. I never dreamed that just being vulnerable and having that conversation would have so much power. And the fact that you guys asked me to speak on that was really, really weird, because until you asked me to speak about it, I didn't realize that it was that vulnerability and that word that got us to a mutually healthy relationship. I hadn't stopped long enough to really think about it until you asked me, and I was like, wow, that's powerful. That is something so simple, but so hard at the same time. Because it's hard having those conversations at first.
Yeah. Well, and I think almost everyone wants people to like them. They want to feel like they're liked and loved by all.
By all.
And the problem with that is that will keep us with that mask on of, I am strong because I think that's what you like about me. So I'm going to put the mask on of being strong. And the truth is that is misperceived in a lot of areas, because, I'm actually strong because I'm vulnerable.
Yeah.
I'm actually strong because I'll tell you, and you probably know this. You probably know this about me as well. I'm pretty forthright about things, because I don't want anything to come between us.
Yeah.
And if I'm feeling a certain way, I want to talk to you about it, because I don't want to go to someone else. I want to come to you, because I want a relationship with you that works.
Yeah.
And I think that when you start going and talking to other people, that doesn't work. I mean, you've got to sit down with the person. That was a hard lesson. I learned that many years ago, but it was a hard lesson for me to think that I could sit down with somebody and have a real authentic conversation and solve the problem. A lot of times I either tried to avoid it, or I go talk to somebody else about it. And that doesn't solve the problem.
Yes. And I have to tell you, we are all guilty of the whole gossip thing. We're guilty of Gossiping is easy. That's a society accepted a society. I'm thinking my words out right. Gossip is accepted by society. You know, it's accepted because we've made it acceptable, and it shouldn't be acceptable. It should be that exactly what you said is, have you talked to them about it? That should be
the answer.
That should be and that should be the question every time somebody says something is, have you talked to them about it? What are you doing about it?
Yeah.
Instead of, oh my goodness, really? Tell me more.
Yeah.
And I take one step further, and maybe I'm comfortable in this because it's part of my role. But I do say, if you're not comfortable having that conversation, then I would be willing to have a conversation with you. Or if you would like me to let him know how you're feeling first, and then you follow up, I can do that. And oftentimes the employee or coworker will say, yeah, I kind of like you to sit in on that one. Sometimes it's a manager that's getting ready to have a conversation with an employee that they don't have a mutual trust. So that's just naturally part of my role. But I want to be able to encourage others that are not in my role, others that are not in a management position, but they can impact the workplace in powerful ways, like that young lady that I told you about. Because of her incredible personality, if she can avoid the pitfalls of what happens in the workplace that causes negativity and use her bright personality and bright light, and have the confidence to know how to handle those situations ahead of time, then the department, the school that they work at, the entire organization shapes a different culture. And it's just one person at a time. I used to think that I had to impact 500 people at a time, and I was going, Lord, I'm not comfortable with that big of a crowd. Although one day he might lead me. But in the meantime, my CR leader, I'm going through Celebrating Recovery. I graduate January 2nd. It's been almost a year. My CR leader says it's not just one person, because you're impacting that person's family, that person's children, that person's sister and brother and friends. And so when you come alongside one person and it makes a difference, they have a whole community around them that's going to see the difference and the transformation. So don't think just because you're having one conversation at a time that it's not making a huge impact.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a funny bit. You know, I tell the starfish story all over the place. And it's not my story. But I love that story. But I go a little bit farther and add my own princess flavor to that. And it's what you're saying right there. And that is, you know, when the starfish gets back in the water, they reproduce. Like they are able to multiply what you did by putting them back in the water.
Yeah.
And so it is a exponential thing when you help one person. You know, you throw one starfish back in the water to survive, you have exponentially changed the culture, the community, the church,
everything,
the business, the nonprofit. I mean, you can go on and on and on. The family, you can change by doing that. So I am blessed by what you do.
Thank you. Thank
you. Would you like to tell all of our listeners about 3 to the 3rd? Is that okay to like even call it by name?
Yes, absolutely.
Now that I've done it.
Yes, I'm excited to tell you about 3 to the 3rd. So in October of 2013, shortly after I went through this experience in the workplace, I started praying and asking, what can I do to make a bigger impact? One of the most difficult parts of my job in HR is having to let somebody go, to terminate their employment because they're dealing with a social, emotional, or economic crisis in their life. And so they at one time were a good employee, but for whatever reason, their behavior and their performance is being impacted by whatever's going on, either in their family life or in their work life. In my situation, it was both. My mother was in and out of psychiatric hospitals and regular hospitals at the same time that we were dealing with this chaos in work. And at the same time, I'm having to let people go. And so what's very difficult about that is I work for an organization that is incredible about supporting our employees. We provide the best training, we provide support, we provide an employee assistance program, which is free for them to get counseling, and we provide incredible benefits. However, if somebody doesn't get to the root of their problem and they're in crisis, they don't know how to reach out to those benefits. So we say go to the EAP, and they're a single mom working paycheck to paycheck, and they can't miss any more work. And so eventually I coach them. They want to do well. I bring them in, I spend a lot of time with them. I reinstate them after a suspension. And unfortunately, I know, because I've been doing this for a very long time, that most likely something else is going to happen. And eventually they're going to act out because they don't know how to handle the stress. They're going to act out again, and it's going to mean that they're dismissed and they lose their job. So I wanted to do something more for those employees. And so God gave me a vision for this organization that will come alongside other employers and managers and help their employees connect to resources to help them with social, emotional, and economic issues that they're dealing with. We kind of come alongside their employee assistance program. Sorry, I heard my name, I think. We come alongside the employee assistance program, and the reason that employees don't reach out on their own to get help is because they're in crisis mode. They don't know how. When I was dealing with my mother-in-law dying, and my husband and I were working full-time, and we were having to give her 24/7 care while she was under hospice, we didn't know where to reach out. And even if we did, just picking up that phone and making that call was hard. Or we couldn't even think about it because we had so much stuff going on up here and here that the thought of picking up the phone and asking somebody for help, if we could even afford it, wasn't something we could handle at the time. So what 3 to the Third will do is bring people alongside you when you're going through that. So we don't just give them an 800 phone number and say, call this phone number to get help. We come alongside them and we encourage them. And we have people lined up ready to help them. Some will be faith-based organizations. That's what I reached out to because that's what I'm comfortable doing. I've gone through our SOZO ministry that I'm part of and CR, which is Celebrating Recovery. But some of them won't be faith-based. Some employees and employers may not be comfortable with that. So, but for the last 4 years, I've been connecting to people to be part of this this organization called 3 to the Third. And those are people that can come alongside employees and even employees that are in job transition. If I let someone go and we decide that that's what we need to do, then we want to take it a step further. We want to help them transition to a job that's a better fit for them. And not only is it a win for the employee, but it also helps the employer because then the employer probably will not deal with as many legal actions, possible lawsuits for the termination because you let them leave with their dignity and you cared enough to help them. And they also know that you've taken the extra step, you've gone the extra mile to help them be successful. And if it didn't work, by that time they know that it just wasn't a good fit for themselves. So that's what 3 to the Third is all about, is connecting resources, connecting people like you guys. Jennifer's example. So more
I hope that you're still talking, Donna, because we have lost you for a minute. I hope you're still being heard by everyone else.
I can hear you now. I can hear you. So, no, further over. I still see her until
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to get. Can you hear us, Donna?
Yes.
I don't. Donna, if you can hear me, can you log off and log back on?
Yes.
We don't want to miss what Donna is saying.
No.
What she's talking about is so powerful. We do business. We are more about business than like corporate situations, but we need to be aware of.
This is something that can apply to anybody.
Every business.
Yes, every business. I've never heard of this before, and I think this is a wonderful thing.
Let's try again and see. Can you hear us, Donna?
Oh.
Oh my goodness. It has been good the entire time, and now we come down to the awesomeness of what she's doing, and we can't get the signal right. Oh.
Oh.
I don't know what has changed in the connection, but we are struggling to hear Donna. Everything is garbled. So I don't know, Donna, if you can hear us. We're still having difficulty hearing you. I will say that if you want to get in contact with Donna, you are welcome to message us, and we'll put you in contact with her. I need to look up real quick her website because, and if you can hear me, Donna, if you can even put it in the comments or message me, and I'll put it in the comments so that they can contact you and get more information. I know she just held an amazing event in Tulsa with her 3 to the 3rd. She had and I'm not really sure what she called it. I can't remember, but she had an event, and apparently it was really successful. And so I am excited that she loves people enough to help them when it's a crisis situation like that.
Well, I think, if more corporations had that type of program available, it would save so much for so many employees that are going through things that are obviously going to affect their workplace. They're going to affect the people around them. And it really, so that's.
And, she brought up a good point. When you're going through things that are outside of work, it affects your work. It impacts
It affects everything. Absolutely.
The way you can do your job. And when she's, trying to make decisions at work, and the whole time she's concerned with her mother-in-law passing. I mean, those are huge. That's a big, huge thing.
And it can't help but change your judgment slightly. I mean, you can't be in that same mindset and not have it be something. But what she's doing is phenomenal.
Yes, and we do not mind at all putting all the website information in the comments. So check back with us. We will get with her and get the information. I hate that we lost her because she is such an amazing person. And if you're on here, be sure and comment and encourage everyone. I encourage everyone who's listening to contact her or contact us, and we'll get you in touch with her because she is a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, if you find her on Facebook, she actually had some information on there about 3 to the 3rd when I was on there looking at it. So
okay.
Yeah, so if you reach out to her on Facebook, she has some information on there about, and I think she was talking about the event that you're talking about. So good place to catch up with her.
Yes. Well, this is the Hope to Hope conference, and while I hate we lost her, I'm glad she got her story in.
Right.
And we will get with her and get the website and things in the comments so that you can find them easily. And man, I thank you, Donna. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so incredible.
I thank you for being vulnerable with your boss, but I also thank you for being vulnerable with us today.
Absolutely.
So that everyone can be encouraged to not buy into the gossip, but to buy into the opening up so that you can build those relationships at work and outside of work.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Well, we have coming up next at 1 o'clock Pacific time, 3 o'clock Central time, 4 o'clock Eastern time. We have the amazing Dave Ross. He's one of my heroes, and I always tease him that he's my hero, and he doesn't understand I'm being serious. I'll tell the story when he's on, but you definitely don't want to miss out with Dave coming on. And he's a retired Air Force. He is world champion public speaker.
Wow. I can't wait to hear him speak.
I know. So you don't want to miss out on the next session either. Well, this is Kim White with the My Sexy Business team.
And this is Coni Meyers with Crystalline Moment Success Movement and Publishing.
We're at the Hope to Hope conference, and we thank you for joining us. We'll be back in just a little bit. Mwah. Love you guys.